The public can access this meeting via WebEx technology. The meeting of the Fox Hill School Building Committee will be held in person in the school committee room. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy, the meeting will not be suspended if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The meeting number is 2334-214-7922, and the password is Burlington with a capital B. The first line item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from June 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we got a long list here. Mrs. Bond?
Yes.
Mrs. Monaco?
Aye.
Ms. Simon?
Aye.
Mr. Brooks?
Aye.
Dr. Conti? Okay. Ms. Kasha? Mr. Cuna?
Yes.
Mr. Denizio? Can we not hear them?
Thumbs up?
All right, we're looking to see how we can hear you. We can't hear them.
So at home, you can hear us, but can someone talk?
Bob, this is Eric.
Oh, here we go.
All right, we can hear you, Eric. Thank you.
And you can hear me?
Yeah, you're the only person we can hear, though, in the room right now.
Oh.
Yeah, Melissa's not really making it to the mic. We can hear you, Bob, but nobody else really.
We can hear. Okay, let's see.
Is it on? Maybe,
Yeah, it's on.
maybe closer. Unless she's close.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Your mic was on briefly.
Melissa's on right.
It was on. Yeah, but they are saying they can't hear me.
I can hear us on speaker.
So try it again.
Eric, can you hear me? I,
I'm just on over the
oh. That, I think like our mics go into the ceiling somehow.
Yeah, just so we can get it closer.
All right, I can't see anybody right now, but are we all set? Aiden or Eric, can you hear me? Yes, okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna move forward, all right. So, back to the vote, Ms. Kasha.
Yes.
Mr. Denizio. I see him on there, okay, thumbs up. Mr. Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Mr. Villano.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Ms. Priest.
Aye.
Mrs. Bunker.
Aye.
All right, I'm an aye.
We missed.
Who'd I miss? Oh, Mr. Lyons.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Bob is on my list.
Must be.
All right,
Must be an older
in-person.
sheet.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 with 1 abstention. 0 minutes passed. All right. Do you want?
Good evening, everyone. So we wanted to address as a new agenda topic responding to previous SBC comments. And so based off of the previous SBC, we heard some comments and some feedback, and we wanted to address them tonight, so that way we're providing a response to the comments from previous meetings. And so one of the comments that was brought up was in regards to emergency vehicle concerns due to Fox Hill current traffic pattern. And so the response that we wanted to provide to that is that the new school options will provide, meaning new construction school options at the Fox Hill site, will provide for emergency vehicle access and improved traffic queuing on site. And it will also alleviate traffic queuing on Fox Hill Road and Westwood Street. So what that means is, based off of the new construction options that have been presented with the new pattern of the pickup and drop-off loop and parking situations that have been proposed, it will alleviate the traffic queuing that's currently happening on Fox Hill Road as well as Westwood Street. In addition to that, Safe Routes to School is also, work is ongoing this summer to help alleviate the current traffic as well. So that, we just wanted to provide that response to that comment. As far as working groups, meeting notes, as well as presentations on the website, reports, programs, et cetera, I just want to address everyone from the committee and from everyone from the public that the Fox Hill Building Project website is a website that the Doran Whittier team maintains for the project itself. That is the website that we've developed, that we put everything that is part of the project, and it is the most up-to-date regarding the project itself. And so that's something that we maintain separate from the town website as well as the school district website. We do provide all of the documentation to the school district as well as the town for them to post on their website. But again, for the most up-to-date information, please visit our Fox Hill Building Project website. If you have any comments or questions about the website, there is a comment page on the website, and we welcome feedback from everyone. It is an evolving, basically, website and document that we're always updating, we're always adding to, we're open to suggestions, and I just want to make sure everyone knows that in this presentation, it will be updated on the project website following this meeting, and within the presentation are hyperlinks that will bring you to the working groups, the meeting notes, the traffic report, and the educational program, as well as the building options and presentations from each meeting. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear as far as the Fox Hill Building Project is separate from the town and school district websites. In regards to meeting notes from working groups, we're currently working on posting any meeting notes that occurred from working groups prior to the 6-1 public records request. And obviously, there's a lot of notes that we have to gather and put them into formal meeting notes. And so I would say in the next week or so, we will make sure that all of those notes are posted on the website concurrent after the 6-1 records request information that was passed along per that request itself. In regards to the spray painted trees and markings to remove trees, I know that we did address this, but I do want to reiterate again to the building project and as well as anyone that's from the public that that is not part of this project whatsoever. We're not quite sure who was out there painting trees or marking to remove trees, but again, has nothing to do as part of this project itself. In regards to a comment that was made about the decision about the preferred school option has been made, we also want to reiterate again that no decisions have been made. The decision is required in November for us to select a preferred solution to submit to the MSBA. So again, for the PDP phase, we are not making any decisions now. What we're working towards is making a decision for a preferred option in November itself. And then lastly, as far as the comment that we have not presented two-story building options. We did present two-story building options at the SBC meeting on 6/20, and also we'll be presenting it tonight on 6/28. So I just wanted to make sure that moving forward as an agenda topic that we address previous SBC comments.
Mrs. Simon?
I just wanted to comment about the traffic issues, which is obviously a really big, serious issue. It occurs to me that there's a real problem right now, and that people in the neighborhood are obviously concerned. A new building, if we went with the 640 enrollment, would add some traffic, and yet the traffic is a problem now. I think, just to reiterate, the design solutions all include putting more of the cars on the site, and it should alleviate a number of the traffic issues. But it also occurred to me that if this is an ongoing traffic issue in a neighborhood, that's happening regardless of any building project, I want to encourage people in the neighborhood to maybe go to the select board and ask for some kind of a working group to figure out how to solve some of the problems. I know at our last meeting, the designers were saying there could be some traffic calming things in the neighborhood. And yet that's not really part of the school building project, but it's important. And the neighborhood should be included in that kind of a conversation. But I know also the Safe Routes to School is going to start discussing many of these issues, but it seems to me it's probably even a bigger issue than the Safe Routes to School. And I would encourage people in the neighborhood who are having trouble now with the traffic to maybe get together and go to the select board and say, we want to meet with the police department about enforcement, and we want to meet with the engineering department about what are their plans, and when, you know, we'd mentioned renovation of sidewalks and new sidewalks in some streets, I think it was Vincent, and to get in on it now so that it doesn't get designed and then later they say, well, we already designed it. So I mean, it's clearly a really big problem right now, and so I don't see why the neighborhood folks couldn't go to the town and say, look, we need to be part of this process and thinking about it and planning it, because you're the ones who know what's happening in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to add that as a possible suggestion.
Yes.
Could I just encourage everyone that when they are speaking, when using the microphone, to be maybe 2 to 3 inches from it? It will help everybody who's home and also in the crowd as well, too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next agenda topic is in regards to the future public comment format. And so we just wanted to address this today with the full building committee. As a team, we have typically put public comment towards the end of the agenda for the purpose of, especially during feasibility study and the feasibility phase, we have a lot to present to you. There's a lot of key information that we need to get through in order to make sure that we're going through the stages and part of the milestone process. And so ultimately, as we get through that presentation, it seems that a lot of the public comment could be addressed during those presentations. And obviously, if we didn't address something that they wanted to make a comment of, they would make it after we've done the presentation. We wanted to open up to the full building committee as far as getting your recommendation and your decision, make a decision as far as where you would like us to put the public comment on the agenda moving forward.
I actually, again, would like to keep it consistent with what we do in other meetings in town and have the public comments first. And then as we go through agenda items, they certainly are allowed to ask questions just like in any other meeting if it's on the agenda itself. Because again, there's some people who are coming just to make a statement and they might want to go home and watch the rest remotely instead of sitting here because they have things to do. And to make them sit here for 2 hours, 2.5 hours before they can read whatever statement they brought, I think is a little cruel. So.
Does anyone else have any comments?
I'll just say I agree. I think the way the selectmen run their meetings and the way the school committee runs our meetings, we used to have public input both at the beginning and the end, which wasn't a bad idea because someone who came in late could wait until the end. But I agree with Catherine that if somebody just wants to come and make a point, they should be able to make the point. And then, again, as we go through agenda items, for instance, school committee, if you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda, you bring it up at the beginning in public time. And if you want to speak to an agenda item, you put your hand up during the agenda item as we're discussing it. And I agree that it's more polite to the public to do it that way, but it's only my opinion.
Ms. Simon?
I'm not opposed to having it at the beginning. I see an advantage to having it at the end because of the nature of the business of this committee. It's not, we have a very particular project we're working on, and there's an awful, like Christina just said, there's a lot of things we need to get through to keep the process going. I don't want to have people not, I clearly want people to be able to speak. Also during other like school committee meetings, it's usually the members of the board who speak first, and then if there are people who want to speak on that agenda item. So people would still have to wait if they had comments, but I see it as a somewhat different function to this committee. So I see some real advantage to having it at the end, and no one else raised their hand, so I just wanted to put that perspective out and, see where people end up.
I have to say I agree. I had moved it from the beginning when we first started. I think it was at the beginning, and the team recommended to move it to the end. I think with the amount of information that we're presenting to, the teams are presenting to us, I think the comments, I know we get comments every week. Folks do not have to present the comments in person. They can present them virtually. You can submit them to the website. They can email us if it is a hardship to watch the meeting. But I think it's really important that folks actually watch the meeting if they are going to comment or ask questions, because I think we have gotten a few comments that have been answered throughout the meeting. And these are pretty meaty meetings as well. So Ms. Priest threw out the option of doing like 30 minutes of public comment or 15 minutes at the beginning and capping the length of time based on how many folks would like to comment, so that we could get creative as well. But I worry about the ability. This is a large committee to begin with a lot of actual business to attend to. So that's my opinion.
I just want, I think that's a good idea to maybe cap at the beginning, because I think the perspective is that it got moved to the end when we had people speak for about an hour one night when we really had a lot to talk about. But if we cap it at the beginning, I think that's fair compromise.
Okay. Okay, I don't believe we need to vote. Public comment is at my discretion, the agenda. So for tonight, I'll bring it forward so that, and I would like to cap it at 30 minutes this evening, so it's 6:20. We'll go to 6:50, and then same rules apply, the 3 minutes, and I will, anything after we can bring to the end of the meeting as well. All right. So, yeah, do you want to flash forward? Yeah, I'll just move she won't move the screen, but is there anyone here for public comment? Please come up. I don't know if we had a sign-in sheet. Okay, if you can just state your name.
My name is Laura Stone.
Hang on, can you turn the mic on and bring it close to you?
Thanks. My name's Laura Stone, and I'm a resident of Vincent Road. So I just have one comment and one question. The comment, and I know this has been raised before, and I'm just sitting here as a psychologist who spent many years working with children and children who have special needs, that smaller school is definitely better than big school. Lots of research to back that up. Question, Vincent Road. I was walking in the woods down the end of Vincent Road, and I noticed there were stakes that had been put up regarding the school property. So I'm wondering if there's been any discussion about Vincent Road being changed in any way in order to have an additional egress for the school.
Thank you for your comment. We'll address the previous ones in the next meeting. Thank you. Do you have a hand online, Bob? Okay.
Katrina?
Katrina. Oh, hang on, Bob's unmuting you? Or,
She's going to mute. Katrina, did you have a comment? You're muted right now. Yeah, so they can unmute themselves. So,
is there anyone else in the room that wants to speak? No. Oh, there she is. Okay. We can hear you.
Okay. A little bit, or you can, or you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know what just happened, but good evening. My name is Katrina Boschetti, and I'm here as a taxpayer and registered voter. I know that it was brought up last meeting that you haven't heard from taxpayers, and so I will state that I am one, and I believe that everyone who has spoken previously is one as well. As I sat through the school committee meeting on Monday and heard all the facts from 2021 that Ms. Monaco stated from the meeting minutes, I wondered what has changed since. Once Ms. Simon made her speech, I realized only then it was the bottom line. Nowhere in her speech did she have facts or had done any research as to why a mega school or a mega campus would be better for our children. I have only heard costs. You may ask yourselves, why do I keep coming to these meetings and why do I keep speaking up against a mega school or a mega campus? Well, I'll tell you. I have 4 little children who will be affected by this decision. And I am extremely passionate about my children's future, as I would have thought the school committee would be for the children in this town. I now see most of you up there do not have kids in the school system or littles that will be affected by this decision. Since that may sway your vote to a mega school or a mega campus, I'm going to list facts as to why the school committee and voting members need to put the children's future first and not the bottom line. Since 2019, Burlington was ranked 57 out of all of the public schools in the Boston area. They are now dropped to 83 in 2022. Bill Ricca, who was ranked 89 in 2019, they have now succeeded us to 46 in 2022. Wilmington, who was rated 66 in 2019, has now also succeeded us to 50 in 2022. These tax rates in these towns are much higher than ours. We have the lowest tax rates around. Bill Ricca's tax rate fell to below $12 just this past year for the first time in 5 years. They did put a brand new high school, which clearly has done a lot for their town. The taxpayers have been paying for their town and their children's future. And they are it's clearly paying off here. And that is some real fact numbers. With that being said, and what has been going on in the middle school and the high school, we really need to focus on our kids' foundation, which starts at the elementary school. Clearly, for the past 4 years, we have been failing our kids, and we really need to put them first. Stop with the bottom line. I have only seen research that speaks to the social, emotional, and educational development of smaller schools. And those that say two separate schools on the same property will keep that, let's be real. In 5 years, the town will end up combining them anyways, as they don't want school against school and want to be inclusive to all. We, as taxpayers, would like to see our ratings go up, as that is a huge draw for families to come into our town. As for the Fox Hill neighbors, who are also passionate about why we do not want a mega school or a mega campus, is because the new environment will only affect them. You will be causing unsafe roads, more traffic, and traffic all hours due to the plan of more community events being held there. The neighbors who are taxpayers did not buy a home on or near a highway. They now do not want the town to make their roads a highway. I'm sorry?
Can you wrap up, please?
Yep. I am now going to beg all of the building voters to do right by the children of this town, the future of this town, and your community members to vote for just rebuilding Fox Hill, maintaining Pine Glen, and keeping the 4-school model on the 4 separate properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, so I saw Eileen too. Oh, no? Okay. Chris Campbell?
Thank you. I had the opportunity, Chris Campbell, I live on Donald Road. We'll have 2 daughters who will go to Fox Hill town meeting and on Ways and Means. But I had the opportunity to speak before the Burlington School Committee Monday night and want to extend and share my remarks to the Fox Hill Building Committee as well. Now that the glitz and the glam of the MSB process is worn off, we find ourselves in a critical juncture in our schools and our town and making much needed upgrades to our school buildings that have gone neglected for far too long. And we find ourselves in a situation where we feel like we're being forced and rushed into compromising on something that in any other situation we would not, by combining the Fox Hill and Pine Glen schools into one project, as the vast majority of the speakers have continued to speak up against this proposal. This will irreparably harm our students' education, the value and quality that they get, as well as the Fox Hill neighborhood itself, putting such a large school and area together, combining in this neighborhood that is already overwhelmed with it. The idea of the butterfly school continues to be one of those that I cannot get over, as the start of school, end of school, the gym schedule, lunch schedule will completely run the entire schools, as well as there will be no autonomy between both schools. What happens in one school will affect the other. There'll be 2 separate student handbooks, but one school working as 2 different. It won't be good for our students. As everyone has said here, the education is there. We need small schools in order to have the best environment for all of our students and continuing to have those on IEPs. Additionally, none of our neighbor schools are doing this. There are roughly four schools within the state that have done this. If it is such a good idea, why are not more schools considering this? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands? Did you want to? Oh, Eileen. Okay. Eileen, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Eileen Sickler, town meeting member, precinct 4. So I'm late to the game here, and so maybe there is a formal timeline that's been published, but I'm very much interested in seeing that, you know, going out, I don't know, 18 months even. And, you know, being in town meeting, I didn't know, I think it's important that this gets brought up before whenever this is going to be brought up to town meeting. So I was hoping that if you hadn't already planned to do so, that in September, that you would speak to town meeting about you know, the current status. But again, I'm looking for a formal timeline. And again, maybe that's been published. I don't know.
Thanks, Eileen.
So is there a timeline?
We have one, I believe, on the website.
On the school's website.
foxhillbuildingproject.com.
Okay, and how far does that go out?
6 years.
6 years. Okay, and does it include how we're going to pay for this?
No.
Uh-huh.
That's on the agenda.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, thank you, and I'll check out the other website. Thank you.
Speak, Liz. Yep.
Hello, all. My name's Elizabeth Orfanos. A few of you have seen me here a few times. You know me as an engaged and involved parent. I am also a voter and a taxpayer, as anyone who has spoken here is. You might notice we haven't spoken too much about our taxes. We're speaking about the educational benefit of our children. So what I'd like to touch on tonight is that there have been many people speaking at public comment. This, to me, is a clear indication that your constituents are concerned and questioning the manner in which you're doing business and making decisions. That's why I'm here. It's why I'll continue to show up. My children's education is a priority, and so is that of every child in this community. And your voters want to know that that is the case for all of you. What I have noticed as of late that's greatly concerning to me is the shift in some of the language used in these meetings. We've been told that this conversation about combining the schools is a requirement of MSBA, and that we must explore this option. And for a time, it appeared we were exploring it and doing our due diligence. However, what I'm now hearing from board members is a shift from exploring the option to supporting it, and that is concerning me, given that we know it is not the best educational model for our children. Some other words I heard at the last school committee meeting regarding the combined school option was, it seems feasible. It may be a viable option. That's all true. It is feasible and it is viable. However, it's not the best educational option. I do not want to see the education of the children of this community degraded to options that are feasible and viable. That is not in alignment with our school's mission statement that promotes excellence. Now, I've spoken here before, and I've referenced the research. And as was mentioned at the last meeting and was addressed tonight, is that very often things in public comment don't often make it back onto the meeting agenda. I don't know whether those of you in the decision-making seats are reading that research and understand the importance of small schools for our children and how the research speaks about the school within a school model, which is essentially what we're talking about with a butterfly school. When you look at that, those schools are created to solve the problems that came of building larger schools. They try to regain the benefits of small schools by creating them within larger schools. But what we're doing here is setting out to make a large school knowing that there are drawbacks to it, to our children's education. And that's not, I think, in alignment with what our community values are. So what I say is I encourage you, read that research, understand it, particularly if you're not an educator yourself and you haven't been in a classroom. And consider the needs of our children above the almighty dollar, which is essentially what seems to have brought us to this place. And in closing, I'd like to say I appreciate the time and the effort that you all put in, and I ask that you consider continuing to add to the agenda those things brought to public comment, particularly looking at that research and finding the best possible education for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? All right. In the room? All right. Building project name.
Yes. Let me just get to that slide. There we go. Okay. So we started off as the Fox Hill Elementary School building project. And so as the project has moved along and the different enrollments that we have to study, it was brought up in one of the discussions of possibly changing the name of the project to Burlington Elementary School School Building Committee. So we wanted to bring again to this committee tonight the discussion of the building project name and open it up for discussion as far as what you recommend we name the project moving forward.
Yeah, I think, Martha, I think you suggested the name. I'm open to names, and I just want to clarify that the name and the inclusion of Pine Glen is to include the representation and feedback of Pine Glen, not to steamroll and say that we've decided to combine Pine Glen, but to make sure that Pine Glen's voice is represented in a decision to combine Pine Glen. So that is the impetus for the name change, to make sure that folks don't see Fox Hill and say, okay, I'm in Francis Wyman, I'm in Memorial, I'm in Pine Glen, it doesn't involve me. So that was the reason for the project name change. I think it would, I mean, the MSBA is going to call us Fox Hill, but we could change the name of this committee and the project. I know there was some back and forth when we made the flyer for the community event, so I wanted to make it an official vote if folks are so inclined.
Yeah, my concern was that because it was we proposed to MSBA that we redo the Fox Hill School, and they said if we agree to that, we have to also look at combining Pine Glen and Fox Hill. That was their idea. And so we began the process, and I know Fox Hill staff had some input, and I know Pine Glen staff had some input, but then it became a question of, well, if if one of the options is going to involve Pine Glen, we should not just, I felt it was misleading to continue to call it the Fox Hill School. And as you put it, regardless of whether we build a 325-student school or a 640-student school, it will affect all of the students in Burlington in the elementary schools, because those numbers do not meet the needs of all of the students who are currently enrolled. So some students would be there'd be redistricting that would affect the whole whole town. So I just thought it would be helpful to have a different name. And so somebody threw out Burlington Elementary School Building Project. If somebody has a better idea, that's great. I'm concerned about continuing to call it sort of within us to just say Fox Hill, because it involves so many other issues.
I actually think it is a good idea just to get it out. I know it is confusing because this committee did start under a different name. One, just kind of add on, I would say, no, we have that Fox Hill building website URL. I don't want to change that, though, because I feel like we've pushed that out. So that might get a little tricky, but I do think on Martha's point, it is important to it is going to affect all schools, but keep the website the way it is. Okay. Yeah, the more, I just don't want, I feel like that's been the website we refer everyone to. I just don't want to add confusion to that, but.
Ms. Monica?
Yeah, when Martha first suggested that, I thought it was a good idea. In fact, I mentioned that it involved redistricting, but since then I've found it confusing, like going to the website or looking at the names. It's like, whatever we do, everybody thinks of it as the Fox Hill project, so, and I'm not opposed to any name you want to choose, I just think it's confusing.
Ms. Bunker?
Sorry, I actually agree with Ms. Simon that the name as Fox Hill is confusing, and I think that people are missing the memo that this will affect all 4 elementary schools. So I would definitely support changing the name to something like Burlington Elementary School Building Project or something along those lines. I think it does clarify that it's not just affecting Fox Hill, Pine Glen, it's affecting the entire town.
Ms. Bond?
No, and again, I'm going to mirror kind of what Ms. Monica was talking about. I mean, I still think since MSBA calls it the Fox Hill Project, it's confusing to call it something else. But I think part of the issue early on was that I don't think we were communicating to the Pine Glen community and the other schools. So then it became confusing for people to call it whether we were calling it Fox Hill Project when it clearly was affecting the other schools. So again, I'm not totally opposed to it, but I just think that was kind of the root issue of trying to change it, was that we weren't communicating as well as we are now to the rest of the community and the other parents and the other schools and the teachers and the principals and everyone involved. So that's just my 2 cents.
Does anyone have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to change the name of the working name of this committee to the Burlington Elementary School Building Committee.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Bob, you watching online? I can't see. Okay. Okay. There we go again. Mrs. Bond.
I abstain.
Mrs. Monaco.
Aye.
Ms. Simon.
Aye.
Mr. Brooks.
Aye.
Dr. Conti.
Aye, yes.
Ms. Kasha.
Yes.
Mr. Cuna.
Yes.
Mr. Denizio.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Villano.
Yes.
Ms. Priest.
Aye.
Mrs. Bunker.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 1-0. Motion passes. Welcome to the Burlington Elementary School Building Committee meeting. 13-0-1, sorry. Pass.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next on the agenda is the 626 School Committee update. So we just wanted to provide an update to everyone as far as what happened at the 622 School Committee meeting on Monday. It was the second discussion on the educational programs and the space summaries for the enrollment of 325 and 640 students. It was reiterated that studying 2 enrollment options is an MSBA requirement, and the final educational program and space summary will be submitted with the preferred solution to the MSBA. School committee voted to submit both enrollments in the PDP submission pursuant to the MSBA process per the agreement. Any questions? Okay. Next on our agenda is the preliminary design program options to be evaluated. And Donna, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Thank you. So I know we have a really, can everyone hear me? Am I close enough or too far? Really big agenda. So we just want to refresh everyone's memory as if you haven't just seen this, but as just so you can be thinking about the options when we start talking about the cost of the projects. So again, you'll hear this frequently, and per the MSBA agreement, we are required to evaluate the 8 options that are on the screen. Anywhere from a base repair for 325 students to a combined new school over at the Pine Glen site. We recognize not all of these options are, just go to the next slide. All of these options are valid or good ideas, but MSBA asks us to evaluate these from a cost perspective to make sure that we have explored every option so that you can make an informed decision as to your preferred solution. So options 1 and 4 for either 325 or 640 students do not change the existing building. It's what we call a code upgrade and repairs to accommodate the ADA requirements and just some building upgrades. the site doesn't change, the traffic doesn't change, and Pine Glen would not change. But most importantly, this does not meet your educational program. So that's why we're all here, right? The building doesn't meet your educational program. So we have to consider it, we have a cost for it, and that will help you just kind of put the costs into perspective. Option two is to renovate and expand the building to meet the educational program. So again, very similar to the last one, we have to keep a portion of the building and demonstrate how we could reuse some of it while creating some new spaces that would better accommodate your educational program and space needs. Again, similar to option one, this does not improve the traffic. We are not modifying the site or changing the loop road that goes around, which creates the backup and the congestion on the other roads. But again, we'll have a cost, and that will be helpful as you start thinking about, well, what is a renovation addition cost compared to new construction? So that is this option. Option three is what we're showing here are four different options, very similar. We're showing the existing building, which may be hard to see. It's a red dot in the middle. That the school will remain occupied while we build a new school. So we looked at options of how we could coexist during the construction and then where ultimately the new school could go. So we're just starting to explore these options. We're hoping in the next meetings or so we can start getting into what people like, what people don't like about them. But two-story and three-story options, providing the appropriate parking, making sure that we're able to provide on-site queuing so that the queuing doesn't back up onto Westwood and to Fox Hill. And they meet your educational program. They provide the appropriate support and relationships of programs to give your students the appropriate need support within and surrounding the classrooms. So that's this. Yes, sorry.
Just a clarification before we go on to number 4. I think I understand, but I'm trying to make sure. So all of the option 3s are to build new construction for a 325-student new Fox Hill. The difference between them is that 2 of those options are 2-story buildings and 2 of those options are 3-story buildings. And the reason we have 2 3-story building options is because they're in 2 different places on the physical site. And the same thing for the 2-story. Is that the right way to think about it?
Thank you.
So A and B are in different places for the same building, or C and D are in different places for the same 2 stories or 3 stories.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And these are concepts based on the meetings that we've had with the school and the visioning sessions about the spatial relationships and adjacencies, what fits on what floor. And then once an option is decided, or as we start further evaluating this option, we look forward to having more meaningful conversations about the inner layouts and how the spaces really inform the footprint. But based on our preliminary conversations, yes, we can accommodate a 2-story building or a 3-story building in 2 different locations. And maybe there's a third. We are constricted by the wetlands, the vernal pool, the existing building, which is probably our biggest obstacle right now. And then obviously wanting to make sure that we're able to provide enough queuing on site for removing all of the queuing that occurs on Fox Hill and Westwood. We talked about option 4. Option 5 is very similar to the option 2. It's for 640 students, though. And again, we have to demonstrate how we could preserve a portion of the existing building. And what you see here is an expanded addition to support the 640 students. Again, the traffic, absolutely, you'll have more students, and we're unable to eliminate the traffic that is occurring on Westwood and Fox Hill because we cannot effectively impact or improve the on-site traffic within this scheme because we're keeping the existing building there. And then here's option 6, similar to option 3, is for 640 students though, and based on 155,000 square feet, which is where we're at right now for a gross square footage, it would be a challenge, and we can still continue to explore it, but it would be a challenge to have a 2-story option for 640 students, given the existing building needs to remain in operation during construction. But if people, if option 6 is one of the preferred options to continue to study, we can explore it a little bit more, but the footprint is quite large as it is, and that's why we're just showing 2 options right here. But even in these scenarios, we are able to bring the queuing to occur on-site. Yeah.
So I noticed the new Fox Hill building for 325 looks like it's 91,000 square feet, but for a new Fox Hill and Pine Glen, which I'm assuming those schools would be the same size, it doesn't look like double that 91,000. It looks like a little less at 155,000 gross square feet. So does that mean that the Fox Hill building, if it were 325, would have a larger square footage than if we were to combine it?
Proportionately, so you're saying proportionally, right?
Yeah.
So some of the spaces, so you'll have double the number of classrooms, right? A lot of the similar special ed spaces, but
So is there shared special ed spaces as well?
Nope. Fox Hill has a lab program, so that has larger space needs for it. So when you look at it side by side, you'll see there are some nuances to the individual school programs.
Okay.
The gym is shared, so 6,000 or we're proposing 7,300 square feet. So 7,300 for Fox Hill alone is the same square footage for the combined school.
So if I'm understanding this in the combined school, then would Fox Hill side take up 91,000 of those square feet?
No.
Since that, okay, so at the 325, they would be getting more square footage then for those students in that.
Right. So for example, the gym, right, is 7,300 square feet. It's 7,300 in Fox Hill only, and it's 7,300 in Pine Glen.
Okay.
So some of the spaces, that's where we were saying there's somewhat of economies of scale when you start getting to a little bit bigger school. The kitchen, for example, is larger, but only proportionately larger, right? So there are these formulas that are used. Same thing with the media center. It's larger, but not double.
But classrooms would be the same size?
The classrooms
everything.
are equal, 3 classrooms per grade, all of your tutors and lit specialists and math specialists. Your special ed programs specific to each of the schools is totally independent. Your quiet rooms, your sensory rooms, your OT, PT, all of those spaces would be completely independent and separate from each other.
Thank you.
Yeah. But that was good observation, yes, so thank you. So because the 640 student option is combining both Pine Glen and Fox Hill, MSBA wants us to study the Pine Glen site. So option 7, as a requirement, we had to look at a renovation and addition on Pine Glen for 640 students. Again, without any alternative space while construction is occurring, what we refer to as swing space. The students would need to remain in the school during construction. So you'll see the dotted red line is where that's part of the building. The white bar is the part of the existing building. So what we would do is we would construct what's in orange for most of the core facilities, such as the gym, the cafeteria, the media center, and then lab and the supporting needs for Fox Hill, and part of Pine Glen. Once that addition is built, we would move the students from Pine Glen in its entirety over to the new addition. We would then renovate the white part of Pine Glen, and when that's complete, everyone would go to their individual homes, and at that point, the Pine Glen students would move over to the school. So everyone would have the same size, the appropriate spaces. It's just a renovation and addition. Pine Glen site is obviously smaller, as you can see, than Fox Hill. We are concerned about the congestion of for 640 students on the site, not being able to provide sufficient circulation on site for queuing for that number of families. And what you'll see is there's very limited play space. We have costs associated with that as well. Option 8 is very similar, with the exception that it would be a new school. And again, keeping the existing Pine Glen School, you'll just see there's almost no space to do anything other than a 3-story, 155,000 square foot school. And you can just see the impact on the site. Very little play. We have to provide for the parking for the 640 student school, and the access in and out would be problematic because we don't believe we can get the circulation required on site to alleviate any congestion on the streets. But it's a requirement. We have to explore it. So, and then the last option was just in response to, if the MSBA project only accommodates Fox Hill, the what if is what might Pine Glen look like, and what might Pine Glen cost to build new there. So what we've done here is we've taken the educational program based on 3 classrooms per grade, and all of the associated Pine Glen needs that have already been evaluated, especially for special ed, and just trying to compare for equity purposes. What you see here is a slightly smaller building. Again, the lab program over at Fox Hill just requires more space, but otherwise everything else would be equal, and there would be full equity. We would build it behind the existing Pine Glen School. Once it's built, transfer the students, demolish the building, and then finish the site. And you can see that this really is a more appropriate scale for this site. There are some play fields and obviously play areas for the students. And we have a cost that we can talk to on that tonight as well.
Donna, this is a 3-story at this mock-up for Pine Glen. It says 2-story challenging. How challenging? Impossible or just challenging?
Not impossible.
Okay, thank you.
You can just see where the red dotted lines are outlining the existing school. You know, we could probably make it an L. We could probably, maybe there's one portion of it that is 2-story and one portion's that's 3-story. I don't know. There are probably different ways of looking at it. We believe we have some wetlands in the corner. And then again, not thinking to the future, many of us, many years ago, they took up the prime real estate and put the building right in the middle of the site. So,
just one other quick thing. Someone asked me today why we didn't have any one-story buildings in the design. Is there just simply no room at Fox Hill to put a building that's one story?
yeah, that would be extremely challenging. It's a 90,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And what's the one that's there now?
64.
Okay.
And
Half again.
it's in this weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One comment I wanted to make too, when we start looking at costs, is I know we've heard some folks talk about enrollment, right? I am confident that when we open whatever school we do, that I believe our enrollment is supported. But if we want to look at future potential enrollment growth, I think we do ourselves a disservice building only 3 classrooms per grade on the site that we have unlimited options, right? So the MSBA is unfortunately tying our hands on the Fox Hill site. But if we are to do a non-MSBA project at Pine Glen, I think we'd need to explore a 4 classroom per grade option as well to give us that enrollment room.
Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Yep. Next up on the agenda is the preliminary design program cost estimate, project cost, and schedule. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
You can go through, I'll take it over at the end of those slides.
Yep.
I'm going to use Donna's mic. You want to keep that one? Basically, we're here to talk about whatever's been on a lot of people's minds is the money, and I just want to kind of remind folks that over the last couple of months, what we've been doing is really kind of learning about your educational program, learning about your sites, learning about you to develop these options, and then once you have this data, this input, then you can start building these models and that Donna has done. And then we send that off to estimators. Those go to the estimators with a what we call a basis of design, which is basically a list of assumptions, like what kind of mechanical systems and other elements of the building, because estimators need to know that. And so we have done that. We had a reconciliation about a week ago. We've developed a spreadsheet that I'm going to try and kind of walk you through live, and we've developed rough order of magnitude costs based on this information right now. Just want to point out that the costs will go into the PDP submission, and then the next time we're going to get a look at the numbers is at the end of the preferred schematic report, which we're going to be November, December-ish timeframe. And then after that, we have the schematic design estimate. That is a very important estimate. That is going to be the estimate that we're going to base our project scope and budget agreement on with the MSBA. That is when you make your deal with the MSBA, even though you haven't completed the design of the project. You're about like midpoint, call it. So that's a very critical estimate. And then after that, after you town vote, go through the local approval process, and we can talk a little bit about that too. That grant will never go up. You've made your deal with the MSBA, and so we have 3 other opportunities to make sure that we're staying on track as the drawings evolve. And so we do another estimate at the completion of detailed design. We do another one at 60% construction documents, and then another one at 90% construction documents. And that allows us to, once we've set that number, we have to stick to it because, like I said, the grant will not go up, and we take a look at it as the drawings become more developed, and if needed, we'll go through a value engineering exercise to maintain budget. So that's kind of an overview. What was on the next one? So this was not meant for people to read. This, I just want to get that out there. This was basically what you're looking at here. This is the MSBA's total project budget. It's on their website. Anybody who's curious who wants to take a look at it, go to their website and you can download a copy of it. It's a very complex spreadsheet that they've developed, and essentially what it does is you put in your project information and it tells you how much they're going to pay for your project. And so we have talked a little bit about reimbursement, and it happens a lot where, you know, your base reimbursement's 49%, and, you know, people hear that and everybody thinks, well, we're going to get half off of school. That's great. Unfortunately, the way MSBA works is there's several things that are ineligible, and we can talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Was there one more before I try and take over?
It's just the second page.
Oh,
It's the second page
okay.
of a very large project
Oh,
budget.
okay. All right. I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
Bob, do you want to distribute? Do you mind? Yes. Thank you.
All right.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of walk folks through this, and I guess what I want to start with is these are not going to be the numbers for whatever job we pick. These numbers are going to evolve over time. This is sort of my first pass at it. We're going to need to get with the building committee and certain others in the community to turn the dials and, you know, talk about what % contingency do we feel comfortable with. Talk about all these different factors. Like, for example, you know, these costs do not include PV or solar. So we haven't checked that box with sustainability yet to really get accurate pricing. There's several things we need to have discussions on. We're going to talk about how are we going to build it? Is it going to be design, bid, build, or are we going to go construction manager at risk? Because there's a perception that construction manager at risk has more cost. And so these numbers will change, and this is the first pass, but we need to start somewhere. And so I'm going to walk through this, but essentially what I'm looking to do and what I'm hoping to get out there is to establish sort of a financial working group. We already have one, but we may want to expand that for this particular exercise to really get into the numbers. And we can talk more about that, but I've said enough. Why don't I just walk you through my sheet here. So the top section in blue, this is basically, it's going to be what is going to be the guaranteed maximum price if we go construction manager at risk. Okay, this is the portion of the budget that encompasses all things related to the construction of the project. So I'm going to focus on 3C, so we're all looking at one column and everybody's on the same page as I'm spitting out numbers. So focusing on 3C, it was pointed out 91,000 square feet is the gross square foot. Ineligible square foot, very small amount, just under 2,000. These are spaces that are over and above what the MSBA allows, and I think Donna spoke to that as well. So then it subtotals the eligible square foot, which is where a lot of the MSBA sort of formulas factor on. It doesn't go to the 91,000, it goes to that number, so that's why we break it out. 325 is your design enrollment, and 473 is the dollar per square foot construction excluding site. And that number came from the estimators, and in the car ride over here, after George had pointed out a couple of things, which I appreciate going out the door, I think what I'd like to do is share the estimates and the basis of design with the committee and the public as a whole, so people understand what these numbers are based on, and that BOD, that basis of design, will tell you. So as we start going through these discussions about CM at risk and sustainability and all these other factors that have big impact to the bottom line, it'll be important for people to understand where we started from. So again, the next couple lines, these are all from the estimators. Existing building demolition on this particular option, 1.7. Existing hazmat, that particular line is broken out, the 225,000. That's one of those things that the MSBA will not reimburse on. It's like for vinyl VAT. So that has to be broken out that way. Construction cost, that's a formula. Site work is a direct number from the estimators, and then you get your total direct work in this particular option, 55.9. Design contingency is a percentage, and again, this is one of those discussions that we need to have as a group. What do we feel comfortable with at this phase of the project? CM contingency, same thing. It's a discussion that we need to have. GC markups can be a percent. In this case, as we looked at the multiple different options, we had some that were 2 years, some that were 3 years, some that were 4 years of construction. And based on the length of the project, those percents don't always align. So we asked the estimator to apply actual GCs and GRs per month to extend it out. So it's not necessarily a percentage in this, it's actually based on the estimator. and the duration. And then escalation, same thing. These were escalated to spring of '26, and I think we used 2% for this year, 4% for next year, and then 3, and then 1. So that's how we got to the escalation. Again, once we get into a deep dive in this with whomever group that's going to be, we can walk you through that. And that gets you to your total construction, and the construction cost on this particular one is around $943. So next section, soft costs. So soft costs are everything outside of the GMP. Designer, OPM, legal, modular classrooms, all the other things that you don't buy with the builder. So we broke out your initial appropriation for the feasibility study, which was 1.5, and we broke it out into these categories: designer 675, OPM 418, environmental site, which are consultants, 288, and then other, what's remaining is about 119. Legal, this is another discussion we need to have. Sometimes communities carry nothing. Sometimes communities carry a lot bigger numbers than this. So again, this is an assumption. This is me sitting in my office trying to make my best guess about what you guys want, and that's why we need to have these talks. OPM, this is just based on a percentage. Typically on MSBA projects, OPMs are capped at 3.5%, and designers are capped at 10%. So that's basically what these are, just straight percentages. Reimbursables, again, for additional consultants that are going to be required as we move forward through design. CM at risk, again, we got to have this discussion. Typically, when you go CM at risk, you're hiring a builder to work with you and partner with you before you submit your schematic design to the MSBA, which again is where we're making our handshake. Doing this has a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole tonight. That's a whole nother discussion for another meeting. But if we do go that route, we will need some money to get them on board, because it'll be before we go to town vote. So I don't, maybe we could use the 119 that we have left in other, but just projecting it. What's that? Yeah. Again, that's a whole nother presentation, but I can understand why. So I put some money in there for that. Miscellaneous project costs, these are like if, utility company back charging, the owner needs to hire third-party testing agents, hygienists. This is that category that covers all of the sort of third-party folks that are involved in the project. So again, that'll be a discussion. Modular classrooms, if required, on some of these, we do have them. I think it's on 4, 5, 7. And 1 and 2. All the repairs, basically, we would need to figure out a place to put the kids. So nobody likes modulars, nobody wants their kids to be in them, and towns don't like them because they're 100% ineligible. The MSBA will not kick in any money. It adds no long-term value, and yeah. Sure. Yeah.
With the modulars, just really quick, the assumption is that we have to provide the same number of classrooms that are currently there. So this is based on 34 classrooms, and the question is, where would you even put them? Right, so.
Not a lot of.
3 stories, yeah.
You might have to go 4.
6 stories. 6 stories.
And then the next category down, other mailing, moving, owner needs to pay to move in. If you're in a phase job, you're moving in multiple times and so forth. So until we understand which horse we're going to choose, it's, again, each one can vary. And then technology and FF&E. MSBA has a cap of $2,400 per student for both of those categories. It's been our experience that is typically not enough, similar to the construction cap. It's simply not enough to provide the furniture and technology that kids need. And so we've taken an educated guess and put in $3,600 per student, which is more in line with what we're seeing on other similar projects. So again, another discussion that we need to have. So that gets you to the 16.2. And then, George, I still can't figure out why that formula on row 39 was off, but it was off. And unfortunately, the number went up a little bit. But thanks for catching that. And again, the whole reason why we need to have these group discussions is exactly that. Like, the more set of eyes on this we can get, the better. So I appreciate that.
Which is row 39? Because they're not numbered on our chart.
Oh, it's the green one, total construction and
okay.
soft costs.
Got it.
George picked up on a formula error
Yep.
on that line
Thank you.
and was able to tweak it on the way out the door. So then if you take a look at that, we already appropriated 1.5, the remaining funding that would be 100 million, but wait, there's more. We need contingencies outside of the GMP. But before I do that, I'll expand this. This is the MSBA reimbursement rate. Your base reimbursement rate starts at 45.52. If you do a renovation option, you can pick up a couple of more points here. In this particular option, this is a new 2-story 325, so we would get 0. Maintenance, this is based off of all the great work that Bob's been doing and team and everybody else, and that is based on information that was submitted back in the early part of the project. And then green, some new guidelines came out very recently, like a couple of days, and so we were having a discussion about this. We think there may be opportunities to do better here. Again, it's going to come back to some conversations that we need to have about, sustainability, and we'll kind of walk you guys through that, but I don't know if you want to add anything to that piece at this point or just keep going on the green piece. Okay. All right. So it's, you add those up, it's 48.2. Now, what you don't see behind on those sheets is behind this. If you recall that sheet that nobody could see up on the screen, that large Excel spreadsheet, we basically taken the math and how they look at what's eligible and ineligible and basically created our own formula that I'm happy to walk anybody through, but it's a rabbit hole that we will not have time for tonight. So basically, what it does is legal, they don't reimburse. That's a straight no-no. Ineligible OPM, if there's fees over a certain percent, some of those become ineligible. Same thing with designer. The biggest ineligible is the construction cap, where it's $339 per square foot construction, and then they give you another. $393. I'm sorry, $393. I got to take my glasses off. I don't need those for reading. So yes, $393 for construction, and then site work is $39. Other mailing and moving, FF&E ineligible. So these are just kind of the typical big block MSBA ineligibles, and the one that hurts the most, obviously, is the construction cap. So it's roughly 52 million of ineligible. Then there's some math done behind the scenes. These two contingencies that are below the line, these are what they're called construction contingency, but in my mind, they're owner contingency. And when you do CM at risk, the CM has their own contingency, and that's up in the blue box up above, and then the owner has their own, which is outside of the GMP and completely separate. And so again, this is another discussion, right? This is currently at 5%. Danisco does a pretty okay set of drawings. We could probably drop it to 2 or 3. But again, we need to have those conversations, and we will moving forward. So then at the very bottom, it gives you your total project cost plus those two contingencies that I just spoke about. The maximum estimated MSBA grant, and in this scenario, 24.6, gets you to what is your district share. And then at the very bottom, like I said, when we started talking, we started at 45.52%. How do we get down to 23%? It's because of all those ineligibles that I spoke about. And again, we can do a deeper dive on this, but before we started going too far, I just wanted to kind of pause right there and just see if there's any initial questions. And again, my goal here is to talk about, who's the right group. Do we go with a current financial group? Do we expand the financial group to bring the right people in to start talking about this? Because, as I said, the costs are going to adjust, things are going to change, but it's enough to start some planning, because I understand that it's not just Fox Hill, it's not just Pine Glen. There may be another large project out there, and there may be a public safety hanging out there. So all these things need to be considered and juggled, and that's where we're going to need your help to understand what is the right bonding strategy. How are we going to do all these projects? What's the right order? And so forth. So with that, I'll pause and ask if anybody has any questions on the spreadsheet. Oh, yeah. Why don't I close? I'm going to stop sharing because it.
Eric?
Mike, I just wanted to say thank you. In speaking to a lot of my colleagues who are further along in the process and have been getting projects for the last 2 or 3 years, there's been some concern, obviously, about estimating accurately. And I guess when you're making a judgment call, which, again, we need to discuss further, and please, there's absolutely no criticism here. I understand the volatility of it. My question is, when you had that judgment call, did you judge conservatively just because of the volatility that's out there now?
Yeah, so good question. It's on everybody's mind, honestly. So I didn't make any judgment calls. We used a company called AMF, who is an estimator that Danisco works with, I don't know if exclusively, but quite often. One of the better estimators. They focus on mass schools. This is what they do. He's literally, when I have questions about what's going on in the market, he's a guy pick up the phone to call. So he knows probably better than anybody sort of what happened over the last 2 years, and what we saw was unprecedented. I'm not going to say that we're seeing the light, but maybe a tiny glimmer. So, you know, we were pretty conservative with these numbers. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
And, just a little bit. The cost estimators really look at what the current market is, what the recent bids have come in at. So they really have kind of current market conditions on what's going on out there. A.M. Fogarty is, I think, probably on almost every MSBA project, one side or the other. The owner's project manager, Doran Whittier, will actually have another cost estimator at the next phase just to make sure that A.M. Fogarty's in line and that they're agreeing. But I think the other thing to that point, Eric, is, and I think George made a comment, that there's a design contingency in there of 17%. We haven't really started to design, and so as part of this, we take what we think we know at this point, which is outlined in the basis of design, but for the most part, we're using cost per square foot at this level. So I think the intent with all of this, and it is a lot of information at such an early stage, but we need to go through it, is that this isn't a cost that we're all going to agree to or walk away or understand this is going to be the final cost. Really, these costs are solely just for comparative purposes, and that should somewhat be the purpose of this conversation. A base repair costs, I can't see the screen, somewhere around $64 million, where you can get a new school for 3C is 107 without MSBA. That's the actual cost of the project. So it really is to almost give you a pulse, an order of magnitude, and a comparison of option compared to option compared to option. For then this should be part of the discussion as you decide on which options you would like to bring further along in the evaluation process.
So Eric, yes, we tried to be conservative.
I don't know if that's
I was going to say, in terms of being conservative, I think it's important also to note that AMF's experience just in the local market. It's one thing to have an understanding of the construction market, internationally or but specifically in publicly bid projects, the MSBA will tell you, and they share a lot of their cost data. They try to make comparisons to just general inflation, and it's not a complete parallel. So I think it's really critical to have that local expertise that they bring. And lastly, I think, Mike, you did a really good job going through an incredibly detailed sheet. It'd be really easy just to roll everything up and show you one number. And at the same time, showing this amount of detail, I think, opens it up to a tremendous amount of criticism, because it's easy to see every bit of detail that goes into the bottom number. In fact, this won't go to the MSBA in this form. In fact, it's construction cost and overall project cost. So this is purely a tool for everybody to make decisions from. Almost everyone's a lever or a knob to kind of, run through the decision-making process. And we just, as the discussion starts, we'd really like to hear where you think it is in the ballpark, or, as Mike said, it's based on a ton of assumptions. So we're happy to kind of go through and walk you through that and how we arrived at some of those decisions. But
Yeah, I mean, so typically, I don't know what other OPMs do, but we go through this level of effort, which is not required at this phase, because I think it's very important to understand from a bonding strategy perspective, what are we going to get from the MSBA? And a lot of the time, you don't get that at this phase. And so again, a lot of things to be dialed in, but we're going to get there for sure. We just need to have these discussions. We need to get the right heads in the room. We need to have this working group that can work on this and come back and, talk about it with the SBC as a whole. But I mean, we could literally spend hours on this. And I think there's some people that are very interested, and I think there's other people that, maybe that's not their thing. And I understand that. So, yeah, with that, just to conclude, understanding that there's multiple priorities in the district, I would think inquiry minds would want to know, well, how much is it going to cost us if we do a Fox Hill only 325 with the MSBA? It's going to cost Burlington $84 million. How much is it going to cost me if I do a combined 640 school with the MSBA? It's going to cost you $113. What if we do our own Pine Glen non-MSBA and the Fox Hill with MSBA? It's going to cost the district around $177 million. So again, this is to get you in a ballpark, because strategies need to be implemented. We need to study impact to taxpayers. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that needs to happen now. And again, this is the starting point, and it's going to evolve quite greatly as we proceed.
Ms. Bunker.
So first, thank you for this. I think this is really helpful, because I think we've been talking about things and not understanding numbers at all. But now you said how this is going to impact taxpayers. Are we going to get some kind of presentation on that side of things, as far as like a breakdown of how this will impact our taxes, whether we go with MSBA, whichever project we end up,
Yes.
kind of pushing forward? We'll get that information in a more
Yeah, we have two Ways and Means members on the school building committee, and my next thing was going to ask if they had any comments, or I think there was some calculations brewing today. Once we got this numbers this morning, I didn't know if either one of you wanted to make a comment. Grab the microphone. Grab the microphone, Roger. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so Roger Riggs, I'm on Ways and Means.
Can you
pull
it up a little?
In that role here. There are a lot of numbers that you can, as we've seen from Mike's presentation, he's expressed a certain amount of variability and he's making assumptions. There's a mapping of total cost and Burlington's share of cost into what it does to, along with the other projects that we have to do, the other major projects, how the bonding schedule lays out, how Burlington chooses to ramp and do the bonding. It's probably not premature to talk about per resident increases average, but there's a big range. It's gonna go from big to twice as big or something, and I'll let Ed do that in a minute. So we don't need to jump into the numbers and don't get attached to them, because the same as Mike said, there's a lot of detail, a lot of things to tweak. The bottom line will change, and the answers will change. Do you want to just give you the overview of, you did the numbers, not I, so. All right.
Thank you. So yes, I've had the spreadsheet going since a year and a half ago when we started. And John Eiler presented some numbers, and some things are pretty easy to calculate, some things are more difficult to calculate. And I think Mike presented a very good summary of what's left to figure. And exactly what project we undertake is going to change, as we consider our needs and our other constraints. I'll just comment on the overall picture. I think this is a really great summary of a lot of different options, and the relative numbers are very useful for comparing the different options, and they should be considered along with all the other considerations that have been brought up. The second point I would make is that they're big numbers, and we need to look very careful at these and put them in the context of other capital projects that we have to undertake. That's a point Mike already made. I'm glad that we've looked at the Pine Glen School as an individual school, because that gives us an idea of what doing them separately how that would compare to doing them together. The last thing Mike summarized was the overall big picture cost for the smaller Fox Hill School, the double school, and two separate schools. We will have to be considering other things like police stations and high school renovations that are going to be on the capital budget over the next 5 or 10 years. Because everyone's interested, those numbers that Mike just quoted translate into average into tax increases if we were to bond each of these in the same way. For the median taxpayer, the smaller Fox Hill School amounts to $260 a year over the life of the loan. For the larger double Fox Hill School, it's $356 per year, and for the smaller Fox Hill School and the Pine Glen School that was estimated here, $552 a year. And those are numbers that aren't insignificant to the taxpayers. I'll caution you, that is for the median taxpayer, so that is relevant to one taxpayer in town. Everyone's situation is different, and when we do one project, we could wedge that into our bonding schedule. When we talk about two projects and then talk about any of the other capital projects, we could be talking about a debt override. And so this is a big conversation, and from a financial standpoint, it should involve all members of the community and all the residents, as well as any one school building project affecting all the other schools from an educational standpoint. So at this point, I think we've kind of arrived at the point where we have the big picture. We have the educational impact. We have the financial impact. It's time to start bringing in as many people as we can to consider those. Yep.
Maybe you get them off too. So just one observation. So the incremental costs that Ed mentioned are on top of the normal growth of the operating budget, which has been in the 200s pretty consistently. So try not to fixate on any one of these numbers. The working group that's outlined and the additions will have to do a bunch of work to figure out how to lay it out. I don't know if anybody on the town's financial team wants to weigh in here, but Paul and John, the town administrator and our assistant town administrator, are key to figuring out how this lays out in the capital plan and how the town approaches the funding. But great place to start.
Thanks, Roger. I also wanted to comment a little bit on how the project will ultimately be funded, because I think that's part of the question in the timeline and the votes, etc. So I think this is a reminder for some of the folks that have done it before, but I think it's new for a lot of people. So yes, this school building committee will vote on the preferred design in November. But following that, the elected town representatives of Burlington town meeting ultimately vote to fund the project. And if any or part of these projects need a debt exclusion, the voters also will vote on the funding of the project. If the project does not pass, we get no school. Not let's come back and change the school or make it smaller, make it bigger. We get no school. And we go back in line with MSBA to submit for the 14th or 15th or 16th time. So there's no shoving any schools through. There's no backroom deals. We need to find an option that works for everyone, that supports the education of our students, which we know is the #1 priority, but the town has to decide together what the right way forward is, and it needs to fit into the larger puzzle of also a high school, a police station, etc. So there's many criteria here, there's many stakeholders, and we want to make sure that you are all informed, able to provide feedback, and to make sure that we can ultimately make the correct decision to forward then to town meeting and the voters to finally approve the decision. Correct.
Could I just to kind of put,
I just wanted to point out that we have time for the discussions.
Yep.
And to communicate and to
Yep.
get the buy-in and potentially, come to agreed plan.
100%.
yeah, I was just going to say, it is important to note that we do have time, and it needs to be done thoughtfully, and it needs to be done so that as much community input and key stakeholder input that we can get, the better. So over the next couple of months, we will be, now that we've completed PDP, which is where you look at all the options, we want to get to the one option. Nobody wants to pick one option more than the people sitting right here, okay? Because we're spending time looking at options that aren't going to be the final solution. So the sooner we can get there, the better. We do have to pick a horse between now and, call it November-ish. That's at the end of the preferred schematic report. Okay, so that's kind of the timeline where we need to use these next couple of months to make sure the outreach is happening, make sure these discussions are happening. We're going to need your help. We're going to start with, Paul and John, but ultimately we, just like Melissa laid out, we want to be very clear on what the local approval process is, right? When is it going to be? And so, just again, I don't want to keep going on it, but I absolutely agree. We do have time.
I just wanted to ask Mike if you would introduce yourself, because there are people who don't know, like that you're with Doran Whittier and what your role is and your last name.
Yeah.
Because some of us have been working with for a while, but yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry. Mike Burton, OPM with Doran Whittier, and I'm usually on the Brady Bunch screen, so happy to be here in person tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It's very helpful.
Ms. Monaco, and then I have Eric on the phone.
So I have a couple of points I'd like to make. One is, or actually this is a question. On the numbers that you used for doing Fox Hill and Pine Glen both separately, that is assuming that they be done relatively close together and that they both be brand-new schools.
Thank you for bringing that up. I did have a list of assumptions that I did not put up on the screen, and you're 100% correct. Time, when a construction project is going to happen, is hugely important. What a job costs you today, in 10 years, we all know escalation. So we had to make some assumptions there. We assumed that, based on the ed program, as Donna said, 83,000 square feet. Also hearing what Melissa said, saying that no, we would go to 4 classrooms per grade. That's going to mean additional square footage. That's going to mean that number's going to go up. So it is important for folks to know when they're looking at that particular model. My guess is that you would probably end up with a lot more square footage than 83,000 square feet if you did it on your own.
All right, so a couple of points I wanted to make. If SBA has their enrollment numbers correct, then we wouldn't need the school to be bigger. We wouldn't need the 4 classrooms. If, as we suspect, there may be more students than SBA thinks there would be, then we might need that extra space. But I think it's important to realize that when we get to Pine Glen, assuming we do one and then the other, that could be a renovation. It could be a reno and addition. It could be any one of these options, and we just don't know. So the numbers relative to Pine Glen are kind of pie in the sky, like, well, if we had a whole brand-new Pine Glen and we did it with Fox Hill, this is what we're looking at. But that isn't reality. So I just wanted to point that out. And the other thing is, there are several Ways and Means members here tonight, and they may want to ask their own questions, but one of the questions is, the spreadsheets that you put up on the website, do they have to be put up as PDFs? They would like to see the real spreadsheets in order to look at calculations and all, and also Ed's spreadsheet.
Well, for now, there's a lot of math behind there, and I would like to have some deeper dives before I start putting things out on the website. So once we have those discussions with whatever working group it may be to go through these and dial those things in, I'd feel better about it. There's a lot of, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of work and time and effort that went into this spreadsheet, and once you put it out there, our competitors gobble it up, and then we see it on their website. So I'm a little bit
Well, let me end up
a little reluctant, but
get it.
I'm sure we can work something
But
out.
Let me just make a suggestion then with regard to the working group for finances. I'd like to include a few more Ways and Means people in that working group, and maybe you can share with them directly. I think you've already had conversations with some of them. And so that would work. It doesn't have to be, for the whole world on the
I'm
website.
very comfortable with that.
Okay, that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Eric?
Madam Chair, I don't really have a question. The audio wasn't very good for me. So Mike, could I just ask you to repeat some numbers for me, and then Dr. Parsons, just so I'm clear? Is that okay? Mike, Fox Hill, the 325 Fox Hill alone, what was that number again for me?
We're just going to pull it right back up on the screen so other folks can see it as well. So I'm sorry, which option? So I'll just run through the 3 of them.
Yes.
Fox Hill only, with MSBA support, with 325 students, district share around 84 million. Combined Pine Glen and Fox Hill with MSBA, 640 students, cost the district 113 million. A new Fox Hill with MSBA at 325, and the new Pine Glen non-MSBA, that's going to be around 177 million. Now, as was just pointed out, that is a little pie in the sky. Number one, I don't think it would happen concurrently with Fox Hill. I don't know that you don't have to. You would basically have to look at all the different options: reno, add reno, and new. And that right there is a very wide range of potential options. So.
Right. So again, just getting back to my earlier point, this is sort of conservative. There's clearly going to be a delta between one school, one larger school, and 2 new schools. So the sort of there's a premium to doing that. So I just have those numbers there. And then Dr. Parsons, your work on the tax rate, I heard 552 for the last option, but I missed the Fox Hill and the combined Fox Hill Pine Glen. And I apologize.
No problems. So a lot of projections, a lot of numbers that will change as it develops. So the only thing I did
was took a number which I think agrees almost exactly with the estimate that Mr. Eiler presented a month ago, which is that $1 million of bonding at typical expected rates and durations is going to add about $3.15 to the annual tax bill for the median single-family home taxpayer. And so I came up with the smaller Fox Hill at $259, larger Fox Hill School at $356, and the two schools, and I'm using the 3C example, and 9, I think, the Pineline School at $552. Again, that's too many digits of precision because these are gross estimates of things.
Yeah, again, I appreciate they're all relative. I just didn't hear them completely, so thank you very much. And Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Just to give people a point of reference.
Yes. So, Melissa, I'm fine. Sorry I needed that repeated.
No worries.
My question was about the clarification of what the Pine Glen new 3-story was. So you had mentioned the extra classrooms. I didn't know if that was included in that price, smart point. So
No, it's
that's
the
been
number
clarified.
9. I think that was just up, the 3-story, 325.
And that's not including the potential extra space if
No.
needed.
No.
So, Dr. Price, I just want to ensure clarifying question for the tax. That's just looking at the scope of this one project, not including the totality of projects that are going to be undertaken, correct?
Yeah, that would be the incremental in 2023 constant dollars. And so what the tax bill actually looks like over time, it's not illustrative of that. It's illustrative of the difference between several options so that you can compare what the magnitude of the difference is, and it's a couple $100.
Yeah, and I know this is kind of a big ask, but to help maybe frame it for me so in terms I can understand is, put this correlated to a timeline so we time bound this and going, hey, for the next 5 years, we expect to do these 3 projects, because I know that Fox Hill is definitely on the docket. BHS is quickly behind it with the police station. I'd like to understand a little bit more clearly the totality of what we're looking at and in time and space, how that affects us, if we can kind of project some of that out as we go through this exercise.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely not going to be presented right here and now, because there are a lot of different strategies, and I think you approach it from the other direction. You approach what your resources are, and you try to space out the projects to get it done.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at, right? So, to your point, if we space it out in time, when will Pine Glen get looked at? Are we going to be in the same spot, an urgent need in 10, 12, 15 years? Or is it going to be a 10-year project? And I'd kind of like to understand those as we make decisions. Also to the point that, well, hey, let's just renovate Pine Glen only. How does that maintain educational equity across the district if we just go for this option now and then, oh yeah, we'll take care of that later and hand wave it? I don't think that's a good idea either. We need to explore the range of options as well.
Agreed.
Ms. Simon?
I was just referencing this next slide, which is that I believe that those are the next, now that we have estimates, the financial working group will begin to be looking at all of those things, looking at the resources, looking at the bonding schedule, look at other debts, look at other projects. And that's my understanding, that this is, the next step, but we don't know that today.
Okay, so as I mentioned, a lot of strategy needs to happen over the next couple of months here. I think we should begin initially with the folks that are on this screen. I put this on the screen because, again, there's a lot of stakeholders. We don't know who they all are. We need your help telling us who the right people are to get in the room. So we look forward to hearing about that. If you're someone who thinks should be in the room or somebody, I would say maybe contact one of these 5 people and say, hey, how do we get on the, when's the call? All of our meetings are being public now anyway, so the more the merrier. But we gotta get going.
On our website.
Yeah,
Everything is on the
So-
Fox Hill.
For example, on tonight's, I'm sorry, if you look at tonight's meeting, I mean, it does show the date, but there was no link you could click on to get to the meeting.
Yeah.
So when you go to the town
There
site,
also
you
it's on
can
the
click
town
on
site.
it?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so no.
Right,
so-
but not everybody knows to go to the town site. So I was just, if you can go to,
The same way you access this meeting that we're in right now, you can access any of the other meetings.
So we, as practice, we post the actual presentation following the building committee meeting, just to make sure that everything that we went through is correct, and that we make sure we upload the correct presentation. That's just kind of our best practice that we do. And so Aiden and I make sure that at least by the next day, we upload the presentation to the website, and then it's linked to the meeting date information.
Melissa, my question is, if people from the community want to
Microphone
be on the confidential call, how do they,
It's on the town website.
so on
and
the calendar?
Our, yes.
So on the town
Yes.
website calendar, there's a link?
Correct.
To actually join the call?
The WebEx is, yes. Same way this meeting.
And are the meetings always calls, they're not in person?
So far, I mean, we haven't had a financial working group yet.
Yes, we have not had a specific working group for the financial.
What do you expect that to be?
What do I
In
expect?
person or all?
Oh,
or all
virtual.
calls? Virtual.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
happy to go down the hall or wherever we got to go to find the right folks. So
Yeah, no, I
most
just
of these have been virtual.
Okay. You all out there get that? If you want to be on those calls, you know how to do it.
And just on the link thing, I think we post our agenda, and on the agenda is the link.
right, but I'm on the site right now. There's a link to the 6:20 presentation, but if you look at tonight's meeting, there's no link.
Is there an agenda?
No, it just tells
That's
you.
the presentation they're going to post tomorrow.
Right, but if somebody goes to this site, because we're telling people that you have multiple ways that you can figure out how to attend, and this is one of the main sites that people are going to. We're posting the date, which is great, but some people don't want to have to now go find where to go on the town website to get the link to attend the meeting virtually. Some people are not as savvy as some other people getting there, so we're just trying to make it easy as possible for everyone. I'm looking at it right now. I'm just saying.
Also, from the Agenda Center
This is the
on
whole- this is
Burlington,
the
you can
front
set it
page.
up, subscribe. It'll text you every time there's a meeting announcement. With
It
that
says
hyperlink,
agenda.
it'll take you right to the link to open the meeting.
Right, but why can't it be on the front page? I'm just saying, put it somewhere it's more obvious. That's all.
Yeah, Ms. Simon, yeah.
I'd like to support the gist of what Ms. Bond is saying, that it feels like the website's still a little bit a work in progress. I think it's getting better. But to have, and I understand where you wouldn't have a presentation in advance because things may be modified at the last minute or whatever, but to
It's
have the
listed as agenda
agendas
and meetings.
linked in the
Minutes,
where
not
it says date on the Fox Hill, what's it called? Whatever, the actual the Fox Hill Building website, to have everything there, if you click on that date, that people can follow, to know the agenda, to know the link to join, all those things would be, so maybe it's there and maybe it isn't there yet. I haven't looked at it, in the last couple of days, but I think that's where we want to go with this. We want, to have all that information sort of in one place and maybe sort of in more than one place, so.
Steve?
Yeah, just a general comment. When we had a conversation with the town clerk about the public records request and the meetings and the notes, it's clear we're maintaining identical information in 2 spots, and that's always kind of conflicting in my head. So if there's a discussion or a need to prefer one over the other, I think what the town clerk said is that there's a public/open meeting law obligation to post it, in the old days in the town hall, but in a place that's open to public inspection. So we need to maintain the town posting. So that's not going to change in how we post meetings, how we post minutes and agendas. But the Fox Hill site is for convenience, but I realize that sometimes it could it's two different snapshots in times that the Fox Hill site can be a little more nimble because it's something we maintain. So we're just hoping that that convenience doesn't lead to confusion.
Mrs. Priest?
Is it possible that we could just put a hyperlink that connects over to the town website on the Fox Hill Building Project website to the agenda that coordinates?
Sure.
Right, I was
That
gonna
way,
s-
we're just using that one site, one location for the information, and we're just, for people who need a little helping hand, kind of, making it a little easier for them to get to the place they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy for us to add a hyperlink to the website that links to the town website. Yep.
Yeah, because I was going to suggest something similar to that, or, something that points them to go there next to the date.
Welcome.
But I think that's a good.
We welcome all the feedback. We're really good at building buildings. We're okay at websites.
Okay, so I know that everyone was very excited about the numbers, but I'm also going to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to talk about the schedule, because that's also something that greatly affects the different projects as well.
Thanks. So one of the tools, here's another slide that's difficult to read, but that's kind of the point. The schedule, like the budget, is comprised with, multiple lines, and it's constantly evolving. Most recently, towards the bottom of the slide is all the different options and permutations of construction. Again, we're making a bunch of assumptions, but maybe you could just flip to the next slide in terms of the milestones. Heard a couple questions tonight just in terms of overall schedule, where the conversations of cost. It sometimes feels like we're beating, a dead horse in talking about the schedule and where we are in overall feasibility. But milestone-wise, we anticipate submitting to PDP just after the building committee's vote on the 13th of July. And right now, as Mike mentioned, on the table are 9 separate options. Between the 13th and when we submit the PSR to the MSBA, currently scheduled now in December, approximately 6 months from now, we need to arrive in that submittal with one preferred option. So one thing that I think that's been very clear to the consultant team is that this is a very difficult decision. We realize time is money. We're very happy to make recommendations, but we realize that we need to be careful with that recommendation, and so we've allowed a comfortable and responsible amount of time to make that decision, but we think just based on our knowledge of how the process has gone so far. So drilling down from 9 down to 1 is going to take some time. So like Mike said, that while the submittal will go to the MSBA in a board meeting shortly thereafter in December, we think we need to arrive at that decision sometime around November. So as folks start to plan their calendars and understand what meetings are public, in planning ahead, it really starts between July and November, that discussion and that drilling down of options will start to happen. And it's not up to us to forecast when that'll happen, whether it's going to go from 9 to 8 to 7. I mean, the permutations are endless, but we think that timeline is responsible and comfortable. Beyond that, the next phase would be schematic design, and that's it's developing that preferred option to a much higher level of detail. Schematic design from the MSBA's point of view is that's what we're developing the entire project scope, cost, and budget on, so it's very important. We're anticipating a timeline roughly about 6 months in schematic design to arrive at a project scope and budget agreement with the MSBA. So between now and December, drilling down the options, the next 6 months from December of '24, leading all the way through the local vote. Again, Melissa went through the rough timeline in terms of representative town meeting, debt exclusion, what those options are, sometime around September of '24. So it's a very long process. There was a comment about the schedule. A much higher level schedule than what was presented in the presentation is available on the website. Again, it's a lot of moving parts, so just like Mike's budget spreadsheet, There's a bunch of assumptions made. There's asterisks and double asterisks to hopefully point you to where those generous timeframes are and where the decisions we make over the next year will impact where those timeframes come in over the next 5 to 6 years, as we, forecast when an eventual project might be completed. So, I'd open it up to any questions about schedule, specifically over the next couple weeks, months, or years.
Oh, I just have one question. So, what happens the majority of 2024, like the first half? Are we just waiting for MSBA, or are you working on design? Okay.
Yeah, so there's often a big chunk of time, 6 to 8 weeks, between when we submit some of the key milestones for MSBA. There's a lot of deliberation on their end to review the submittal.
Okay.
But where we try to be responsible and proactive is to try to keep going where it's responsible to do so. So even though we might submit the preferred schematic report in December for a February board meeting, again, the board meetings are produced on a calendar year, but we don't know what they are until roughly about August.
Yeah, okay.
So we're making some assumptions, although typically they happen around the same time. But the first part, I believe your question was schematic design after we submit preferred schematic.
So work
Donna,
doesn't
if you wanna
stop
talk
while
about
we're
your-
waiting for funding, I guess.
Right. So you have appropriated and we're part of the team, right, through schematic design.
Okay.
So once we submit the PSR to MSBA, there'll actually be a meeting with them and everything else, and they'll say, yep, you're going on the right path. But what we do is we start immediately, right? So at this point, we pick an enrollment option, we pick a final solution, and then we start actually getting into the design and refining it so that all of these assumptions that are in this crazy spreadsheet are realized, and we know exactly what it is so that we can really have a look and a feel of what this project will be, and the updated cost estimates, which are really important because that's the costs that you agree with MSBA. So for 6 months, might seem like a long time, it's really not. Yeah, we'll move fast.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I don't know if it was a public comment or a question from the committee, but meeting with teachers and educators, that's one of the first things in schematic design is to start drilling down to the actual shape of the rooms, where tack boards are, where, writable surfaces and room data sheets. So that's the next step in drilling down the detail with actually developing the rooms.
Just one more thing, and sorry to beat the horse.
That's okay.
The only lag, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the only real lag takes place from the time we submit schematic design really until the time you get the local actions and approvals. So there will be a couple of months gap, but other than that, we're definitely not sitting on our hands. We're full speed.
Love it.
Yeah,
George
maybe-
had a question, sorry.
Yeah, maybe just to that point real quick, just relating it to the milestones that's on the screen now, is that is executing the project funding agreement. So really, up until that time, there's no written contract with the MSBA that they'll guarantee you, reimbursement for the construction.
Which date is that? The 6/19/24?
The project funding agreement, roughly November of '24.
Project, I see it, okay.
So following the schematic design submission, the MSBA will vote to approve, and they'll execute a project scope and budget, which cements what the project scope and budget will be, including the schedule. And then they execute the project funding agreement, which is the agreement with the town to reimburse based on everything Mike went through earlier.
But that occurs after you receive your local funding, right? So it's contingent on the local funding.
George.
Thank you. So mine's a high-level question. Earlier in the public comment section, I believe it was Ms. Sickler had asked, where is the project schedule? And the answer was on the website. So I'm on the website, and I'm just curious, for those at home or who don't have access to the documents as we did a day before tonight, where are they looking? Is it official documents? Just, can we give a little bit more detail on how to find it?
Hayden, you
Or
want to
is
take
it-
that?
What's that?
Yeah, the project schedule is on the front homepage.
On the homepage.
Right there when you go to the homepage, it's called Schedule Timeline, and it has both schedules on it.
Thanks, Hayden. Yeah, I've gotten in the habit of skipping the homepage in my schedule. The agendas are the official documents, so thank you.
Mrs. Priest? Yeah.
My question was about the project funding agreement with the MSBA. Is that, you had said that's based off of the local vote. I know sometimes they have their own schedule as well. Is that when they're doing that piece? Like if the local vote happened earlier, would there be an option for them to pick it up sooner?
We just have to work with the MSBA's board cycle, right? Like every 2 months, they have a meeting, roughly. We've had instances where the town has voted before or after the local vote. So once we get closer, we're going to kind of zero in on the timing. I think the scenario I walked through had projects, local vote, September town meeting, but again, we need to figure out the process, what happens after that. And then executing project funding agreement subsequent to town meeting. So town would say yes first, then the MSBA. Sometime in December-ish.
Any other questions about the project schedule update?
So this particular schedule, is this one posted on the website?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can we say where again? Because again, I'm on the
wait,
home.
no, so I'm sorry. There's so many things that we talked about with posting today. So I will make sure that is for the SBC, the FTP link included a separate PDF of the schedule for you to view because it's so small within the presentation. And so following tonight, we will make sure the presentation and then the separate PDFs are also uploaded to the website.
And just so I can understand, in case people ask me where to go, like, I'm on the homepage now, I refresh the page, those PNGs look broken. Just,
Okay.
just as a
Hayden,
point
can
for
you-
Hayden. I don't know. But then, I guess, is it the expectation then that people would go to the documents for tonight's meeting, in which case they would need to know that it was discussed at tonight's meeting to find it? Or is it more general to the official documents page or something?
The presentations lie within the SBC meeting and agendas tab. And so then you click on the meeting and it brings up the presentation and the materials.
So I would have to know that we talked about that tonight if I'm a resident who wasn't here.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Let me talk to Aiden about it offline. I get your point. We'll make sure it's easy to find the schedule because this is the first time we've presented it in this level of detail. So we wanted to have this discussion first, but we can certainly make it very easy to find.
Great, thanks, Mike.
So it might be under official documents also.
Probably
And-
put it right on the homepage.
Yeah, I think that there's multiple places that some of the documents can lie just to make sure that it's easy to find for everyone. Okay, the next topic we had was the criteria matrix review and discussion. So I'm just going to be brief on this as far as the matrix itself. There's kind of two parts to the matrix. One being was first evaluating the criteria, getting the feedback from the building committee, from the community as far as whether or not you agree to the criteria that is set on the matrix itself. And then from there, I know we provided a lot of information tonight as far as cost and schedule that will help shape along with the other discussions and information that we've provided to you as far as reviewing the criteria itself based off of the options. So it's an evolving document that we're going to use throughout the next, call it 5-6 months through the PSR phase. And so it's going to help us ultimately identify the preferred solution to everyone's comments tonight that will occur sometime in November. And so we'll continue to reference and modify the matrix as we study, refine, and choose a preferred solution in that November timeframe. So right now, what I'd like to say is that at our next SBC meeting, which is on 7/13, that is the day that we will approve the PDP to submit to the MSBA. So it should be a brief meeting on that evening, and then We will then be coming back to, I'll cover this under next meetings, but we've planned for our next SBC meeting August 1st. A meeting invite has not been sent out yet. We just reviewed school committee schedule for the summer, and so August 1st is where we're looking to really start looking at the evaluation, the criteria, and having discussions on the options itself. So just letting everyone know there's no homework right now with the matrix. Again, we've done the first part. We'll move forward through the PSR phase with the matrix.
Thank you, Christina. So in regards to my preparation as a committee member between now and July 13th, what am I expected to do? Because if you say we're going to make a decision and it should be a short meeting, how does that happen?
No, so that we do not need that for the PDP submission, so you don't need to do anything for the 7-11 meeting. 7:13. 7-11.
Community forum meeting. There's a lot of meetings.
There's something on 7-11 here, I know that. Yeah, so on 7:13, it's going to be the shortest meeting that this committee's probably had. It's going to be one mission, one vote. It's just to approve the submission that we're going to try and make available, what do we say, the 7th? Yeah, so we're going to get that out in draft form on the 7th, give you guys time to take a look at it. It's basically everything that you've seen, probably feels like 100 times. That's submission of the PDP, and then when we come back on August 1st, or whatever date we land on, that's when we're going to have a little refresher on the criteria. So you don't need to really do anything with it right now, but if you wanted to, now that you've been presented with costs and schedule, you're armed with a little bit more information. Then, as Martha pointed out last time, like, how do you want me to do this? You haven't even shown me a number yet. So that all makes sense. So if you want to start tinkering around with it, that's fine. But again, we're going to do a little bit of refresher. We're also going to take a stab at it, as your consultants, based on what we heard, what we think was important to you. We're going to take a stab at it. We can share kind of how we did it. You guys can critique that. You can do your own. I'm happy to, whichever way you'd like to proceed. So I don't know if that answers your question.
So between now and the 13th, we'll be uploading the draft preliminary design program for you to review.
So you said about the 7th, that'll be available. Okay.
Yeah, so you have a week off.
Because it's hard sometimes getting the documents the day before to then process them.
100%. Yeah. No, it'll be by next Friday.
Thank you so much.
And it won't be small. Just warning everyone.
A couple hundred pages.
Oh, no.
It's longer than the educational
Yeah.
program?
Oh, both educational programs are part.
all right.
So it's going to be everything from the traffic reports to the hazardous material report. So just read the summaries, the narratives in each of the chapters, and then dig deeper if you are interested in learning about the hazardous
Roger.
materials.
Real quick, but you're not really going to be writing much new material, right? Because it's pretty much everything we've seen, but.
Right.
She's just packaging it up, delivering
we're
to
just
the
presenting it,
MSBA.
and just for everyone's, in some communities, they pare down the options to carry forward, and in this instance, we're saying we're going to continue to explore all options. So there's no decision that needs to be made between, for the submission at PDP.
Yeah, I think having worked with a lot of towns and districts through the feasibility process, the PDP it's a big milestone for the committee because it's the first kind of vote in submission to the MSBA. There's no board meeting with the MSBA like later decisions that carry a little bit more weight. So as Donna mentioned, we're not trying to pare down anything. It's really just showing the MSBA all the work we've done so far, all the rocks we've turned over, everything that we found out and come up with options. So it's a big decision from the committee because it's the first kind of formal vote to submit our homework that we've been working on so far to the MSBA, but it's a little anticlimactic at the same time because it's not really arriving at any big conclusions either. So, from now until submission of PDP, to answer your question, George, there's not a whole lot of new material, not a whole lot of homework to do. But as Donna mentioned, there is a table of contents in the draft, so everybody has maybe one or two sections that they're most focused on reviewing, and it's not intended to review that cover to cover, and the vote is simply not to approve the PDP in every, every word and every sentence and every page. It's a vote of confidence to submit it, for the OPM to submit it on your behalf to begin the MSBA's review.
So I think the thing that I'm hearing most from people that I speak to around town is the sense of which option is going to make it through, right? And so just trying to understand the timeline. We've got 9 options, 8 of them are MSBA options. For this July submission, I'm interpreting that they're all going to go through. But then in December, that's when we have to pick one? Or by
Correct.
November?
No, so consider it August 1st, right? That's going to be our first meeting in the next phase. Now we're in the PSR phase. Now we got to pick our horse. So starting 8/1, we're going to need to have these meaningful discussions and get input from everybody on this committee about which ones they like, which ones they don't. I think very quickly the repair options should be taken straight off the table. They don't work educationally. They don't work pragmatically. Those should come right off the list, right on 8/1. And as I said earlier, the sooner we get down to the preferred option, the better. We don't care which size. The only failure here is if you don't get a school. So we just need that information from you guys. That's how we're going to lean on you, using this criteria matrix to try and tease out what's the front runner. I mean, I think I know, but I need you guys to tell me. So that's what this next phase is. So starting 8/1 through, call it Thanksgiving, a little bit before.
Next on the agenda is other topics not reasonably anticipated.
Steve didn't anticipate something?
Coming out of left field. Just tying it back to the discussion on the project name. I don't know if there's any, maybe for next, an agenda item to talk about the website. If you want us to, we're more than happy to purchase another domain to make it friendly and redirect. Just maybe park it as a discussion for future or now.
Can we recap what is the name that was voted? I've got a point.
Yeah, Aiden, did you write it down? I think it was Burlington Elementary Building Committee. Oh, thanks, Bob.
That's why I asked.
Burlington Elementary School Building Committee is the name of the committee that I made a motion on.
That's what yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, thus that becomes the project, right? Committee project would both go interchangeably. But instead of Fox Hill, we're replacing it with Burlington Elementary School. Right? Okay. Okay. I don't think we need a vote for
No, I mean, do
the
you just
website.
want us to redirect the website to the new name?
Yeah. We probably should, yeah.
Mrs. Monaco, you were...
We
you
always run
felt
into
like
problems with Vermont and Kentucky, like
Yes.
Burlington. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Oh, I do have Google Alerts where I get Kentucky all the time.
Yeah. So maybe we just chat, but we'll have a conversation.
How about we leave it as it is
Sure.
for now?
Yeah.
And then why don't we give it some thought, and maybe we can have 2 agenda items on the
Yeah,
13th.
sure. No, not on the 13th.
Okay.
All right, so next meetings.
Yep, so we obviously took public comment out of order, and we did that at the beginning of the meeting, so we're going to go now to next meetings. Okay, reminding everyone that...
I moved it to the beginning.
Oh, we're not having it yet.
Are we doing both of them?
Oh, God.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we can do another 30 minutes max. Yeah, no? Total? Okay. All right, I don't know how many minutes we used in the beginning. All right, 10 minutes till 8:30. Yeah, John.
Thank you very much. John Eiler, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. Appreciate your patience. First, I wanted to thank you all for putting posting the meetings and the minutes, that was great, and I appreciate Mike's patience in particular. I know I've been causing him to work outside the usual box here. Just a few quick things. One, I would suggest in the cost summary, if you use option 3A instead of 3D, that will make the two-school solution be $5 million cheaper, so it might be a little more apples to apples that way. The second thing was I'm assuming the local vote is the town meeting vote. If we decide to do a debt override, not that it's required, but it may be politically what is decided to be done, it looks like there's a fairly short time after town meeting to do a town vote there. So just suggest considering that schedule and if where that might be squeezed in if we had to do that. The next thing is I definitely do want to encourage, and I understand the proprietary nature of some things, but because this is a public process, I think the source spreadsheets really do need to be posted. I think George has demonstrated already finding a math error in that. The more eyes on that, the better. So I think having that posted sooner rather than later would be very helpful. And finally, I just had a question. I know I've asked several people this, but it would be good to get it out there for the public in general. If we do decide to do, say, a 325 school for Fox Hill, with the intention of doing a Pine Glen school 10 or 15 years down the road, just to pick a number, the question has been, is there any chance that we would get MSBA reimbursement for that, or is that considered to be entirely hopeless? And I'm just curious why that would be. I know a lot of people have been asking that question. So.
Yes, thank you. We can answer that next week.
That'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Anyone else? All right. Okay. Thank you. Next meetings?
Okay, next meetings. Just reminding everyone that on July 11th, that will be our community meeting forum number 2 at 7 p.m. We will be meeting again with the building committee on July 13th for the approval of the PDP submission to MSBA. We're looking to have our August 1st school building committee meeting at 6 p.m. and then following that, August 21st at 6 p.m. for school building committee meetings. We did have an executive working group today, and we'll make sure that the website is updated with the minutes or the meeting notes that we took today. And then we plan on having a communication/executive working group meeting on 7/10. I'm not sure if we landed on a time for that meeting yet. I think we're still working on a doodle schedule pool to those groups to figure out a time that works best for everyone. And then as far as the sustainability working group, it has not been scheduled yet, but we're looking to schedule something late July, early August.
Christina, can I add, we did talk about the September community forum/town hall/in-person feedback meeting. I think September, we didn't want to pick a date. I think there's too many moving parts right now for September with back to school, teacher conferences, et cetera, and Eric is still on vacation. So I think we're looking at the week of September 18th, but absolutely nothing has been decided. But I want folks to know that that opportunity to provide additional feedback, because I think we will be providing more information, well, the information that folks have seen in this meeting to a broader community audience in 2 weeks. And then we want them to understand that there will be a follow-up to that in September.
Yeah, and that one will be in person in September.
Yeah, Margot.
Oh, and then just confirming also real quick, everyone should understand the July 11th meeting is virtual. So that is on the community flyer that was sent out, and it's on the website, and it was distributed throughout the community. It's virtual.
My comment was regarding the July 11th meeting. Can you speak a little bit to what the format of that meeting looks like, whether it's more of a presentation or if there is going to be town comment so that the community is prepared to what to expect from that meeting?
You want to go?
It's pretty much a culmination of everything that we have been presenting, including the costs and then the timeline, but it's absolutely open for community input.
Martha?
Just to follow up on that, would it be a similar format to last time? Will you make a presentation, then there'll be questions and answers? Is that what you're envisioning?
Yes.
Okay. My other question is on the upcoming meetings for the Sustainability Working Group. We met on June 1st, and I'm not sure why we're waiting till the end of July or August. I mean, it seems like those are important issues that are going to inform our criterion, our priorities, and those kinds of things. So is it possible for us to meet before the end of July for that?
I think as we're looking at all these dates, we're trying to juggle, MSBA submissions and little things like that. So I think that we completely agree, and I think I said it earlier, sustainability and understanding the goals and the path that this project is going to take is hugely important. That being said, we are kind of focusing on getting that 7-11 or 7-13, that's the third time I've done it, 7-13 vote. So after that, we'd love for the floodgates to open and get these discussions rolling, if that makes sense.
So if we can schedule in advance, maybe get it in July so that
Yep.
it's not pushed off any farther, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, Martha, we can start the kind of scheduled doodle poll, if you will, and work with the group first on timing as far as potential dates, and then we can go from there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone want to make a motion? Yes.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good night. Thank you, Eric.